Welcome to Thrivecast, a community podcast series where you are meeting with the growth and engineering leaders from all around the world. Our today's topic is about the pains and the excitements of implementing PLG, or should we say maybe trials and tribulations of PLG. Today we have an incredible duo, our guests from Sumo Logic, a cloud management platform. Angad and Aditya, both of you been in the trenches, you've been building and experimenting growth at Sumo Logic. Maybe let's start with Angad. Angad, you recently had the opportunity to, I think, be present at Sumo Logic's second year anniversary for the IPO. You and your team rang the bell there. That must have been very exciting. Could you take a moment to introduce yourself of who are you, who's Angad, what's your role at Sumo Logic, and maybe even touch a little bit about uh, who's Sumo Logic as well.
Sounds great. So, first of all, it was a privilege to be at the bell ringing ceremony for Sumo Logic's 2 year sort of IPO anniversary. I'm a principal product manager at Sumo Logic, so I've been with Sumo for about 6 years. I've managed multiple different areas of the product. And most recently managing the sort of PLG and the onboarding aspects of the product. So that's sort of why I'm here. And a little bit about Sumo Logic. It started off as a log analytics company. So we basically provide solutions to ingest log data, process it, provide sort of insights to primarily two sets of users. One is developers who use that for making sure the applications are up and running, and security engineers who use, again, the same log messages to secure the applications. And over the period of time, we have evolved from sort of only the log analytics space into more of an observability and sort of full-blown security analytics space, having multiple offerings in those areas.
Which, by the way, is a big rage. For every SaaS builder, observability is a big craze. I think maybe about 8 or 9 years back, that wasn't the case as much, but every SaaS builder that we talk to, they start with thinking about observability from the very get-go. So compliments to, Angad, and you and your team on building a wonderful product out there. Let's move to Aditya. Aditya, you and I, we touched base, probably once or twice before this particular call. I saw your interesting post at the Product-led Alliance team. You were the only presenter who had an engineering perspective on PLG. Of course, there's a lot of PLG content out there for enabling sales team, growth team, marketing, but your content was standing up. Very, very apparent that you probably went through a lot of pain in building towards PLG. It looked as if you were in the trenches trying to figure out how PLG works and what should you build and what should you not. Could you take a moment of introducing yourself to the audience and your role at Sumo Logic?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Gururaj. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you. So I am Director of Engineering at Sumo Logic. I have been with Sumo Logic for almost 7 years now. It's been a long time, so I've seen growth of Sumo Logic from a very small startup to being an IPO. So it's been an incredible journey, basically. Most recently, I have been working with Angad on our effort to improve onboarding experience and product-led growth at Sumo Logic. So that's why I'm here. Happy to share any learnings that I have had.
Oh, absolutely. Aditya, I was, just before this particular recording started, you were telling us some stories about why did you bring Angad. So we'll wait on for that one. But maybe we'll start with Angad about the journey that Sumo Logic went. Started with, I think you guys started thinking about PLG. Could you tell us a little about why did you? Sumo Logic seems like a very sales-led kind of a product. Lots and lots of onboarding. Very specific setup needs to be done to bring all the logs in to be able to go analyze it. But yet, you started venturing out in the world of PLG. Could you describe a little bit about the problems? Why did you start thinking about PLG, and how did you go about getting a buy-in from the larger organization in general on that they should do PLG? Typically, for a sales-led company, to think about PLG itself is a big, it's a big hurdle. But you guys went a little beyond that. So could you introduce about the journey about PLG at Sumo Logic?
Sure, definitely. I can definitely talk about sort of like how we got started on that journey, and Aditya would probably be better suited to answer the second part of how we got buy-in, because he was sort of involved in the trenches at that time. I joined the project a little bit later. So why? Because the company was seeing some headwinds in general, some changes in the trends in the industry, especially like we talked about, like observability was becoming much more prevalent as sort of like as a thing that people care about. And with that, we saw that there was a change in sort of the buyer persona. So it was sort of like shifting left towards developers. They were making these decisions of what observability offering or what tools they should be buying. And this buyer persona had a very different sort of process of evaluating tools than the traditional persona. And just to give you a little bit context, traditionally, like when we used to sell, we would probably go to like a head of product, engineering manager, or a director of product, depending on the size of the company. And the sales guy would like pitch them a deck about what our capabilities are. Right from there, they'll do like some demos, and then they will POV the product. Maybe they will do some trial run, etc., and then they'll buy the product. Like that was sort of like the typical journey beforehand. But we realized, because developers were sort of getting involved in the first stages, and like some small teams would just like have a issue, they would just like do a trial with a product like Sumo, and then not even engage with sales or anybody else, and take a decision on what they want or need. So we really wanted to sort of get into that or leverage that changing market dynamics. That was sort of like the big impetus for us to go and start this PLG motion.
So would you say, Angad, that a new persona like a developer and the buying behavior or even the trying behavior, that instead of you talking to going through the sales motion, talking to and selling it to the CXO audience, developers were a lot more prone to try things by themselves, and you saw that trend, which is why you started. Would that be right to say? Were there any other perspectives in the sales cycles themselves, meaning the sales would have been taken much, much longer, and you realize either from your competition or your own internal experiments that if you latch on to the PLG way, the sales might reduce? Was there also an indication around that part?
Yeah, so I had mentioned there was some headwinds where we were seeing some sort of slowdown in terms of deal generation, in terms of getting new logos, etc. And we saw that these headwinds are coming, and this is because of traditional sort of like the sales led motion, and like the shift in the mindset. So yes, definitely there were some analysis done. We also looked at competitive landscape, and we found that certain competitors that have now, no competitor has a really great, I would say, still like a very good PLG motion, but obviously some competitors are better than others. So we also looked at that and saw how their business was doing and stuff like that, sort of to give us some validation that this might be the right sort of investment area for us. So yes, that sort of analysis was also done as part of this.
That's interesting. Thank you, Angad. Maybe let's move to, once that you have established the part that you have to have PLG, and it's not a standalone motion, it probably is tagging alongside with SLG. How did you guys go about starting the thinking process? Maybe Aditya, could you explain a little bit about how did you get a buy-in from the organization? Looks like the headwind itself would have been a good forcing function for the leadership to be amenable to think about PLG. But how did you guys go about that? Hey, this is what we should do. This is what we should try first. And I think Sumo Logic being an enterprise kind of a product, you had to go change a lot of things, not just the adding the PLG motions to your product, or not even just the self-service portions of it, but you had to change the entire structure of the Sumo Logic on how does developer actually, discover the value from this? How do they try small? Could you walk us through the process of how did you go about getting the organization wrapped up with PLG and the story from there on?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I would preface the answer by saying that this is still a work in progress. I don't think we can call ourselves a product-led company at this point of time. There is always going to be a mix of both. So this is still a kind of work in progress right now for us.
Of course.
But to kind of get in alignment, there were 3 or 4 aspects that helped got in alignment between the product and the marketing team. The first one was basically what Angad talked about just now, how getting on the same page about the persona, the buyer persona, that we had to do first. Like, okay, the marketing team understands that the buyer persona or the buyer is moving left, and the way they evaluate the product is very different from how evaluation of product was happening in the past. Right. So getting on the same page was the first step, I would say. Right. Second was, I think, where we faced difficulties initially, and then we made good progress over there, was basically getting a executive buy-in. When I say executive buy-in, I don't mean that executives are basically just saying, okay, this is a priority for our company, we should do this. They should actually believe that this is how the company is going to operate. Right? They should truly believe that this is how the company is going to be able to operate, because it takes up a lot of effort to realign the company's direction, and if your executive does not have a true belief in that, it's going to be very difficult. Right? Third, I would say, which helped align the GTM and the product team, was I think improved collaboration. Right. So what we started off with was basically doing these bi-weekly meetings between the product and the marketing team, just sharing what we are doing on the product side for the funnel improvement, sharing what we are doing on the marketing side for funnel improvement and everything. Those bi-weekly meetings helped a lot in kind of gaining trust across the aisle, as you would say. Right. So that was definitely helpful. And the fourth one was, I think, PLG, even though it has been there for some time, I think the awareness is still pretty low across folks. So there was a lot of education that had to happen internally, talking about PLG, talking about the practices of PLG within the organization. I think with all of that, I think it was that's how we basically ended up getting some alignment across GTM and the product team.
Yeah, so the leadership buy-in, some education, some understanding of how this operates, and maybe some business benefits of if we do this, this might be the path ahead. In that case, maybe Angad, could you describe, when let's say you have the leadership bought in, people generally know what PLG is about. Where did you start? I think figuring out what to start and how to start is always very difficult. It's a very difficult journey. But I hear that you started off with, kind of revamping your self-service. You started doing some onboarding changes to onboarding, going from an enterprise-based onboarding. You have a sales engineer or someone helping, the customer to onboard this or that and have the value, to kind of a self-service onboarding. Could you describe a little about the onboarding of the end users? In this case, the developers are the ones who are automatically coming and trying to realize value by themselves, and then your foray into free plans or trial plans, because that's probably unheard of in the enterprise products like Sumo Logic.
So I can give you a little bit of context about how our sort of trial worked before PLG, why we chose to sort of focus on that aspect, and provide a little bit insights into trial and free. So before we did the PLG motion, like there was always like a self-serve component to Sumo Logic, at least sort of like a bare minimal component. So you have a user who would sign up on the marketing website, and then he would activate their account, provide some basic information about who they are, the company, etc. Sort of that was what we qualified as sort of like the activation phase. From there, we asked him to do a couple of things, but there was no sort of guidance earlier around how do you onboard onto the product. Uh, the idea was the sales typically engages at that point. Marketing would qualify these leads based on any information they have about that user, right? This could be like what they browsed on the marketing website, obviously the information provided on the sign up form and things like that. And they would send that over to sales, and then the sales will reach out to the user. If they engage with them, then the sales would help them with their trial journey, essentially help them have some calls with them to onboard their data, discuss with them how to use the product and so on, and from there they would make the buying journey, right? So that sort of was the overall process. Why we focused on this? Because like I said, like developers want to get value. So obviously the first point of value is when you're signing up for a trial, you want to make sure that you can self-serve your data onto the platform easily and reliably and try out the various features that are there. So we identify that workflow, it can be optimized a lot more. So we focused on that for our sort of product-led growth initiative. What we were focusing here primarily was at a starting point was not to replace the sales motion and stuff, because that's sort of like a harder challenge. Our first goal was how can we generate, like provide value to the user, so the developers, etc. When they start, they can onboard their data. So that means sort of like better, clearer instructions for setting up data collection, simplifying actually the process of data collection. So rather than having 5 or 6 steps, you can do it in one step, right? But the command would take care of multiple sort of things that are required to actually go set your complex environment up. And then what we also sort of experimenting on is like this a concept of a checklist, where once you've onboarded your data, we want to walk you through some of the main features of our product. So and essentially show you the value of the data that you just ingested, right? So that's sort of like how we are thinking, and we are doing this. And right now we haven't changed a lot of the selling or the sort of like the qualification motion. But one of the things that's on the table right now being talked about with marketing and sales is, uh, rather than just marketing qualifying these leads, we can qualify it based on their product usage. Because if we are engaging those customers a lot more, right, we are providing value to them, then they are much more likely to engage with the sales team, and we can probably capture the exact moment in the product when they start seeing value, and they will be more willing to talk to the sales. And obviously, that sort of provides a lot of value to that entire buying motion, right? Like you don't have to have a huge sales organization to chase after all these leads. You are actually like doing a very good job of sort of like qualifying that. So that's how sort of like this part works, like this whole trial journey. As far as for freemium, yes, we do offer a freemium model today. The freemium model, the way it works is, when your trial period expires, you're basically downgraded into a premium sort of offering, if you don't decide to buy the product, which is also pretty standard sort of practice in the industry, where you would want everybody who's signing up for an account, try out the full-blown capabilities of the product, show them all the value from the product. And at that point of time, if they don't really care about some of these high-end values, then they can actually go and use the freemium product, which has all the sort of basic capabilities. that our product has.
The reverse trial modeling, I guess, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And in freemium, the way we sort of like provide that offering is very typical of how people do it in the industry. It's just capped at a much lower limit than our regular offering, right? So the amount of data that you can ingest in the platform is capped at around 1 GB, and then we provide all the main features, but some sort of advanced capabilities and some of our advanced features and functions are definitely missing in the premium version.
Got it. Maybe let's peel a few layers of the onion on this one. So, Angad, I think what you mentioned is probably very important for some of our listeners as well. If a company has SLG, you can't just blow off the entire sales-led motion and say, "Hey, that PLG is the new motion." I think what you guys did is like slowly starting to transition towards it. Could it be right to say that marketing, the role of marketing in that particular case changed from, hey, sign up to this particular form, contact us, right? To say, hey, we'll take these contacts, still handing it over to the sales team, but over a period of time, they will replace the contact us forms with a sign up for free button on those pages. Or would you think that's a little too far? You still want to keep the marketing contact us, send the lead over send the lead over to the sales team, and the sales team will, I'm guessing, request your engineering organization to create a tenant. They'll create a tenant, on the behalf of this particular end user, and send an email with a link or something of that sort, to Sumo's tenant, and invite the end user, say, hey, please go try the product. Right? Instead of the initiation actually happening from the end user, the sales is the one who's now initiating that, hey, I would like to have a trial for my customer. And that request probably goes to your engineering or operations team. You would get a tenant, and then you're inviting the potential end user, and then still have the POV conversations. But now it is slightly seamless, meaning you're just sending over a link over with an automatic invitation. Would that be right to assume that's where you transition to?
A little bit, yes. So yes, we do have even today a motion where sales can generate their own leads, right? But in that case, also they will just ask a customer to go on our website and just sign up for a trial. And that's sort of like the standard process. So they'll probably not come to the development team because like they can ask the customers, or they basically help them self-serve. So it sort of reduces the friction point there. As far as like ideally where we want to head here, again, this is sort of into the future, but I think marketing has a great role to play here. But I think it's at the top of the funnel where we are trying to reach out to the right set of users. Right. Right now, I don't think in a lot of respects, like, because marketing is also responsible for qualifying these leads and sort of like being accountable for it, they are able to spend enough time to say, oh, what are other channels where we can reach these developer audiences, right? And creating a very nice sort of top of the funnel. And then the lead generation responsibility can potentially be handed over to product and say, okay, marketing is doing your signups. Product, you qualify it with actual usage statistics, richer,
and you activate the user and then get the engagement.
and then you hand it over to sales, essentially, right? So in that respect, you are talking from standard, like you're using the strengths of each of these areas to sort of enrich this entire buying journey for us and for our customers. Because think about it, right now with marketing qualifying criteria, what ends up happening in a lot of cases is user just gets a email on the second day of trial. A developer does not, their inboxes are already spammed with so many things that they will never like that a sales guy is reaching out to them on day 2 and asking for things. You have to really get them excited to actually sort of like engage any sort of further conversations. So I think like we will be able to tap better if we sort of play to the strengths of various areas, what marketing has, what product has, and what sales can. So yes, I think in the future that I see is lead qualification can be more sort of the growth team's responsibility, and marketing team sort of is more responsible for generating the right set of leads in the first place, because that's also very hard. You can't, even if you have a good product, if you don't have good leads to begin with at the top of the funnel, you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. Maybe let's go one more level deeper than that. So let's say if your sales team has, got somehow they figured out that this is a qualified buyer. They've sent a trial request to the end user. They've also created all the tenant. Purely from an engineering perspective, Aditya, could you maybe share a little about once that request was made to engineering, was it automated or is it something over like a ticket or something that, hey, I have a qualified buyer, please go ahead and create a tenant? Could you walk us through the journey of, you don't know the end user yet, right? You still have to enable the tenant for a free trial. You have to invite the end user. So the set of end users, very likely the invitation can probably go from the sales team, but not directly from the product, because this is a transition time. The end user has not yet initiated this. How do you manage the invitation process, the tenant creation management process, but also tied with a free and a reverse trial plan, meaning the trial starts when the day they sign up, to your product, or whenever the tenant gets created. But what if they don't continue to use the product, and there's a drop off? Does the system automatically clean up, or does the sales team have to say, hey, please blow off the tenant, this is not a qualified buyer anymore? Could you walk us through this entire journey of how the user gets into the product, how the tenant gets created, and the journey associated to the trial, all the way till the end of the trial?
Yep, sure. So I think we have been fortunate in Sumo Logic because we started from a pretty good base where we already had a free product where a user can come and sign up on the marketing website and start a free trial on its own. So the first half of the journey for the user is pretty self-serve in that sorts, right? So the way tenants are being created is basically on that sign-up form, either the marketing website detects where the user is coming from, or the user selects that this is my region. We basically create a tenant based on that. So that part of the process is pretty automated right now. But on the free trial account, so we have a 30-day trial period, after which the user automatically downgrades to free. We do not do a good job at looking at what these users are doing in their free version of the app. So it's basically almost a black hole of sorts of a lot of users. We do timely cleanups of these free accounts where we have not seen a lot of usage over a certain period of time, but that's not automated, right? But there are conversations going out right now in the organization. How do we automate it? How do we start looking at these people who are on the free account? How do we start gathering some product analytics data for these free accounts so that we can figure out what is a good offering during this free period for these users who are using. So that's the current setup right now.
Makes sense. Hey, you know what? There's a cool tool called a Sumo Logic for you to collect all the logs, by the way.
Yes.
No, maybe Aditya, maybe a question on this, right? So about the free trial. So you mentioned that you guys are using reverse trial, and you automatically put them into and give all the premium features for them to use at the beginning of the trial, and then you downgrade. So the mechanisms of downgrade versus figuring out, hey, these are all the premium features versus these are all the free or freemium features, right? Premium versus freemium features. Do you have a feature catalog that you have built internally to say that, hey, once the free trial happens, we'll give them the all you can eat menu, right? They can try various things, but as they downgrade, these are the only things that they get. Is there a catalog that you maintain? And that time window when it goes from all access to all features to only have access to something? Is there a paywall that you have added in between that if you don't make a decision by now, you'll get the baseline freemium features, but if you pay now, you can go higher? Have you already automated those portions?
Yes and no, like how most of the answers are. So basically, in our freemium model, what we end up doing is a free period. Is what we end up doing is we cap the user based on the ingest capacity. The user
Okay.
still gets all the features that you get on a paid version, right? But we cap
Most
it
of
on
them, not all.
most of them. Yeah, most of them. That's correct. So the cap is basically on the ingest capability. How much data that they can ingest. There is a very limited number of threads that are given to them during this period. So and initially when we started off, we did have a catalog, and it was a very manual way of measuring what features we should give in free compared to what features should be in the paid version. But at point of time in our journey during this PLG period, we kind of opened it up to all features for a free user, because we were already capping on the ingest capacities, and it did not make sense to limit the number of features that the users can have, because limiting the number of features also means the users do not get to know about all of the capabilities that our product today offers. So that's basically in some way in product marketing, if you're allowing to show all the features within the product that you have, right? And people in the free version are also your potential future buyers, right? So that is one more reason we remove this kind of limit to number of features that were offered in the free. So now, when on the second part of your question, when it's going from a trial period to a free version where we are capping the ingest limit, we do have a paywall that comes up. We start showing these notification your trial period is ending. But that today, the conversion from this free trial to free version happens automatically. After 30 days pass, you automatically drop to free version. But at this point of time, what we are thinking, and this is kind of a conversation, like, would it make sense to make this action more explicit by users? That if they want to continue in a free product, they explicitly kind of say that I want to jump off to free. So that's the kind of conversation that is happening right now, so that we can start looking at what the users are doing in the free version as well.
That's a very well thought through, things that you have started doing. So that's amazing. Maybe let me understand. I'll probably summarize this. Not to trivialize the work, but I'm just trying to, understand what you have done. The downgrades to freemium, although they are automatic, you want to make it, explicit. But the downgrades themselves, instead of you downgrading to, hey, we are limiting the number of features, you're still giving enough value to them as part of even the freemium, but you're just capping on the usage, capping on the ingestion capacity, if you will. That's actually a beautiful way. You're essentially not capping the value, you're just capping the usage, right? It's very rare that people think about it that way. Most of the products which are B2B, at least the people that we talk to, they downgrade to a set of features that, hey, if you don't have this, you'll not get enterprise SSO, you'll not get this, you'll not get that, right? But instead, what you're saying is you'll get all of that, right? But you will only be able to use less. Right? If that's the case, compliments to you. This is a very mature way of thinking about it. I know we'll run out of time.
I'll just add one sort of thought. Yes, there are like SSO, for example, because you mentioned that's one feature we don't provide in the free version, because that's sort of an enterprise sort of grade feature. But nothing, like Aditya's point is still sort of like holds, because most of the features are still there.
That's
and
what
I
you meant by most. Got it. Okay.
Exactly. The second thing is, and why SSO, for example, SSO does not create sort of product value. It's a feature that allows enterprises to better use your product. So it's it's not actually a value driver of like, it doesn't show Sumo's value that much. It just helps you integrate with your existing products more. So we try and sort of differentiate on that okay, like anything that provides you value of the platform, that we will provide you in Freemium. And I think you asked another question around how do you maintain which features in general for which customers. We have a feature flagging capability. It's an in-house capability, pretty sophisticated one as well, where we can say that this sort of feature that we are launching, etc., can be enabled for this set of customers, and you can define that criteria of that customer and just enable it to that customer. It could be free versus paid. It could be specific geographies. It could be specific regions. It could be even like set of customers or set of users which see that feature.
That's a great clarification. Thank you, Angad. Maybe you guys should open source the feature flag. Feature flag feature. That's very important, especially that goes alongside with the free trials. Again, compliments to both of you on a very mature PLG journey. We are almost end of time, so let me ask a very crazy question. Maybe as we close the call, do you have any war stories about any PLG fails that you've attempted something that failed? You probably felt like you fell on your face and it was very difficult to get up. Anything that you could share from the trenches of the PLG implementation?
Yeah, maybe I can share one over here. So I think one very important aspect of when we are setting up a PLG team is the kind of people we are recruiting for that initial small team that we start off, right? These folks need to have a basically experimentation and a very customer centric mindset. Along with that, you need to have skills on those areas, or kind of at least the knowledge about what we are trying to improve on, right? So for example, when we were one of the examples that Angad gave in his previous conversation was, we were trying to improve the data onboarding rate. That's a very complex path that our developers take, and it's very technical. So initially, when we had set up this team, the team that was set up, nobody had a very good understanding of that workflow, even though we had set up that growth team, right? So we were not able to make a lot of dent in that metric initially, right? So that's when we kind of brought in Angad, who has a much better understanding of that workflow and everything, and we were able to make a significant dent. So I think basically aligning the metric that you want to improve with the skill set of the people who you are bringing in, it's extremely important, I would say.
You actually put it very nicely. I think behind the scenes, very likely it might be, hey, Angad, you are now in, or previous experiments have failed. Now it's you. We bank on you, on your and your self-activation skills, your ability to understand our market. Please guide us. Looks like it's something of that sort. So compliments, Angad. Again, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. To all our listeners, these are some of the series from the trenches about how you're implementing PLG growth and monetization. If you find these insights very useful, please always comment, share the post. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.